Okay, in three, two, one.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another great WestCon Imagine event. My name is Maher Kotob, and I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. For those of you who joined me last time for the last Imagine event, we talked about the new innovations that Palo Alto Networks introduced as part of PANOS 10.1 that feed into the Zero Trust Network security. And these were cloud identity, SaaS security, internet security, and we also talked about the new PA's 400 series that was introduced by Palo Alto Networks. The PA 400 series has four different models that span in performance from 500 megabits per second up to 2.6 gigabits per second. And it's also machine learning powered next generation firewall. And we talked about these as part of zero trust networking. Today, what I'd like to talk about is dig into more details about zero trust and how we can deliver zero trust for the enterprise. So, without further ado, why zero trust? Uh, Zero trust is what can increase your security posture for your whole network. Even the federal government in the US recognizes this. And that's why they must adopt, they want to adopt the security best practices and the zero trust architecture. So, why is this important? And what is zero trust? Basically, zero trust is not a product, it is a strategic approach. It's a design principle on how you design your security within your network. The objective of zero trust is to eliminate any implicit trust element within the network while validating at every stage the digital interaction that's taking place. So that seems to be a bit of a big title and a big definition. But let's break it down and see how we can implement this in any enterprise network. So how do we deliver zero trust? There's three different things that we need to look at. We need to look at the users, we need to look at the applications, and we need to look at the infrastructure. So breaking down these, we need to design zero trust for users, we need to design zero trust for applications, and we need to design zero trust for the infrastructure. For users, how would we design this? Well, there's four different pillars that we need to look at for zero trust in any given situation. The first is let's look at the identity of the user. So we need to validate the users with strong authentication. But the users are always using some kind of a device or a workload. And for that, we also need to verify the device's integrity. Then the access. We need to enforce the least privilege access for that user to carry out his job. And while doing this, we always need to inspect all the traffic and all the interactions that he's carrying out with the network to make sure that this is clean traffic. This is as far as users are concerned. What about applications? Well, applications, when we deploy them in the private cloud or in the public cloud, we have developers who are accessing these applications and making modifications to these applications. So we need to validate the developers, the DevOps, the admins, all of them, we need to validate their identity with strong authentication. Similarly, on the workload, we need to verify the workload integrity and make sure that it is clean. On the access, similarly to the users, we need to give these workloads. Okay, so we're going to stop because of the sound issues. Okay, let's go back.
You are too quick for us, Maher.
No worries.
Um,
So is it breaking up because of from my side?
I'm not too sure exactly what's happening because It's the actual audio that keeps fluctuating. So, what microphone are you using currently?
It's a Yeti microphone.
Could we possibly try it without and see how that sounds?
It will give too much of a background. How about now? Is this better?
It still sounds the same, but it's when you start speaking for longer sentences that the actual audio coming through just drops. So it like actually cuts out a bit.
I'll try
How
to connect through VPN. Let's try that one.
how does this microphone connect usually? Is it Bluetooth or
No, it's USB.
USB? Okay.
Is this better? Let's see if this one is a bit better because I did a VPN. So now, hopefully, there won't be any interruptions.
Yeah, it sounds good. Let's go from the top, and I'll interrupt you if it happens again.
Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Could you just move your mouse just to either the side somewhere or perfect? Okay, and removing myself in 3 seconds, count 5 seconds in your head, and then begin. In three, two, one.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me for another great WestCon Imagine event. My name is Maher Kotob. I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. For those of you who joined me in the last Imagine event, we talked about PanoS version 10.1 and how we introduced new innovations that help and feed into zero trust network security. We talked about cloud identity, we talked about SaaS security, internet security, and we talked about the new next generation firewall platforms that Palo Alto Networks introduced. These are the PA400 series with the 4 different models spanning performance from 500 megabits per second up to 2.6 gigabits per second. But we did not have the opportunity or the chance to talk about how do we implement zero trust. So we talked about the components, and today I'd like to talk about how do we deliver zero trust for the enterprise. So zero trust is very important nowadays. It increases your security posture throughout your network. And this is something that the federal government of the US has recognized and acknowledged. And that's why they will be adopting the security best practices and zero trust architecture. So, what is zero trust? Zero trust is not a product, it's basically a strategic approach to security and cybersecurity. The aim of zero trust is to eliminate any implicit trust and continuously validate at every stage of the digital interaction. This is how we can increase the security posture within any enterprise. So, how do we deliver zero trust? We need to look at users, we need to look at applications, and we also need to look at the infrastructure. Let's talk about securing users with zero trust. So when taking into consideration users, we need to validate the user's identity. So we need to validate these users with a strong authentication mechanism. We need to make sure that the user device's integrity is sound. We need to make sure that we give these users and devices enough access to the network for them to carry out their jobs. But we do not need to over provision this access. And when doing all of this, we need to continuously scan that transaction to make sure that there is no malicious activity and data theft happening. That's as far as users are concerned. But let's take a look at applications. Similarly, the four pillars for zero trust still stay the same.
Ma-
We need
Maher,
to yes,
Maher, Maher,
yes,
we just lost you there for a little bit. If we can please backtrack a little bit and then restart.
on this part.
Um, yes, at the beginning of this slide.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm removing myself in 3, 2, 1.
So let's talk about securing users with zero trust. There are four pillars that we need to look at: the identity, the device and workload, access, and the transaction. From an identity perspective, we need to validate the users using some strong authentication mechanism to make sure that the users who are accessing the network are the authorized users. We need to verify the user's device integrity and then give these users and devices enough access to the network so that they can carry out their job, but not over provision this access. And when doing all of this, we need to be able to scan continuously the transactions taking place and make sure that it is free of malicious activity and any data theft. This is as far as securing users is concerned. But let's take a look at applications. So today, applications are being deployed in the private cloud as well as in the public cloud. But these applications are being accessed by different developers, the DevOps teams, administrators, and so on. We need to identify these developers and authenticate them using some strong authentication mechanism. What about the device or the workload that is taking place or that is issuing or initiating the transaction? We need to make sure that the workload integrity is sound. In a similar fashion, for access, we need to give them enough access that they can carry out their jobs from an application perspective as well as from a developer perspective. And while doing that, we need to scan the transaction continuously for any malicious activity. Moving on to securing the infrastructure, it's the more or less the same thing. It still depends on the four pillars. So identity, who is accessing that infrastructure, the networking infrastructure? Who's accessing your network, routers, switches, wireless? What device, what workload are they using? How do we identify all of these devices on the network? What about the IoT devices? All of these, we need to give them enough access so that they can carry out their job and at the same time monitor all the transactions for any malicious activity. With Palo Alto Networks, if we map all of these three pillars, all of these users, applications, and infrastructure against the four pillars that we talked about, we can see that Palo Alto Networks has products that will help you out with that security throughout the access. But we do not cover everything. And we're going to talk about the different details in the coming slides. So someone might say this is an overkill. We're looking at users, applications, and infrastructure. That is too much. But let's take a real world example. So this is a user who's using his device, his laptop. He's starting an application that is trying to access through the internet the public cloud infrastructure, and he's going to land on a web server. Now, this web server is going to work with its underlying components, the containers and the VMs in that public cloud, as well as the platform as a service to give the results back to the user. In this case, this is the user and this is the identity we need to identify. We need to understand who this user is. We also need to understand the device and the workload that he's using. Is this a sound device? At this point, someone might ask, why do we need to check the integrity of the device? The user is more than enough. Well, true, if the user is accessing his device and we authenticate him and validate him, that is enough, but not quite. Because if this device has been already infected by some kind of a malware, then this transaction might be happening in the background without us noticing. So we need to verify the integrity of the device. Moving on, what about the internet, the public cloud, and the web server? This is the access part. And we need to give this user using this device enough access to make sure that he can carry out his job. We will be monitoring all the transactions as well in this section of the network for any malware, any command and controls, and so on. But it doesn't stop there because the web server is going to interact with the rest of the application, the underlying parts of that application. And this is where things get even more interesting because in this area, we are going to have identity, the workload, the access, as well as the transaction that we need to map out in this infrastructure. Now, today, we do not have enough time to cover all the aspects of users, applications, and infrastructure, but we will be covering zero trust for users. So, if we break it down, zero trust for users, we need to identify the user and we need to collect their identity. And we can do that using different mechanisms that we're going to cover. From a device's perspective and workload perspective, we need to verify the integrity of that device, and we'll be using the Cortex XDR for that. From an access perspective, to make sure that the user is accessing only what he needs to access and enough to carry out his job, we'll be using multi-factor authentication, we'll be using app ID, we're going to be using dynamic user groups, and so on. As for the transaction part, we need to make sure that this transaction is a clean transaction. So decryption comes into play, phishing, malicious websites, advanced URL filtering, detecting command and control, as well as DNS attacks, and so on, will be carried out all in the transaction section. So let's start with validating the users and verifying the device identity. So combining both of these. So we're always going to refer back to these four pillars. And now we're going to cover the identity and the device workload. So validating users. How can I collect the identity of the user and validate them? So we have users that are spread all over the network. Some of them are working in branches. Others are working from home. We also have users on the go, mobile users, and we have partners who are accessing our network. We need to be able to verify all of these users and block users who do not have access or malicious actors who are trying to access our network. In order to do that, we need to be able to allow or block access based on a verified user. And to do this, we need to be able to do it at every security element within the network. So distributing all of this user ID and identity throughout the network is very important. Previously, we used to do in the legacy solutions, we used to do only IP verification, IP address verification. But this is not enough. IP addresses change, but users is what's important. We need to look at the user ID. Is this user an employee? Where is he trying to access? Is he allowed to do that or not? Maybe he's from the finance department. He's trying to access an internal financial application. We need to be able to differentiate between the two, irrespective of their IP address. And that's where user ID comes into play. So how can I bring or collect the user IDs? Well, there's multiple solutions out there. You can use a local database on your security solutions, like firewalls or And network access control solutions, you can define your users directly as a local database on these solutions, or you can use your existing Active Directory or LDAP. This is an on premises identity provider. But as people more and companies move more and more towards the cloud, we have cloud identity providers, the likes of Okta, Ping ID, Azure Active Directory, Google Security, and so on. Most companies today have identity spread all over using Active Directory as well as LDAP as well as cloud identity providers. So that might cause a bit of a challenge from a security perspective. So we need to be able to understand when deploying these solutions from an identity perspective. We need to understand and collect that information from the on premises identity providers as well as from the cloud identity providers. And this is where the cloud identity engine that we talked about last time comes into play. We can integrate all the solutions with Cloud Identity Engine, and in turn, the Cloud Identity Engine will integrate with the on-premises identity providers as well as the cloud identity providers. And it will be able to normalize all of that IDs and provide the proper access to the users within the network as per the security policies. That's from an identity of a user perspective. Let's talk about the device integrity. From a device integrity, we need to secure and make sure that that endpoint, laptop, or workload is a secure and has a sound integrity. So how do we do this? We can use the Cortex XDR from Palo Alto Networks. What it provides lots and lots of services from an endpoint perspective. So we do have endpoint threat prevention. It has all the next generation antivirus requirements. It can work with a host firewall. It can do disk encryption, device control, but it's also embedded with machine learning and analytics so that we can carry out any correlations between indicators of compromise and behavioral indicators of compromise. We can do vulnerability assessment. There's always a chance of something going wrong. So we need to have a built-in mechanism of incident management, understand what is the root cause, and have direct access to that endpoint so that we can clean it up. In cases of threat hunting, if there are certain attacks that are global against a certain industry or a specific targeted attack, we need to be able to do some threat hunting within our network and accordingly respond. All of this is built in within the Cortex XDR. So we're making sure that this device or endpoint is clean before and after it is taking any transactions on our network. And this is going to be the second pillar from our delivery of Zero Trust. So far we've identified the user, and now we've made sure of the device integrity. What about mobile users? These mobile users, a lot of them, especially now in the pandemic, are not working within the office. They're working from home. And we can extend this zero trust to include these mobile users, although they are not on the corporate network per se, with Global Protect. So we can do a trust assessment. We can do micro level policy enforcement, advanced threat protection, visibility and reporting, as well as secure access. The granularity that we can provide with Global Protect is essential for Zero Trust. And this works irrespective what kind of product you're using from Palo Alto Networks, whether you're using firewalls on premises or in the cloud, whether you're using Prisma Access, which is firewalls as a service spread all over the cloud, whether these users are trying to access the internet, the public cloud, SaaS, or even the data center. Irrespective where they are, we can still collect their ID, their identity. We can still make sure of the integrity of their device and provide them with the proper access to the network. So how do we do the test assessment? So we need to look at if this device is infected, then we need to quarantine it. We need to make sure that this device is compliant with the policies of the enterprise. When the user is trying to access anything on the network, we need to understand what kind of application he's using. What is his user ID, the identity that we referred to in the first part of Zero Trust. Then we make a decision that we trust this user and we trust this device. And at that point, we need to control what kind of access he has on the network and continuously monitor these transactions. So, Global Protect is an essential component within Zero Trust to spread it across mobile users in the office as well as on the go. So after we've identified the user, we've made sure of the device integrity, how are we going to secure the access? We need to give these users the least privileged access to the network so that they can carry out their jobs. It is very important to enforce only least privilege user access to data and applications. Any over provisioning of this access can be taken advantage of by the hackers out there to infiltrate our network. So, how do we do this? We need to understand who the user. So, user visibility is very important. We need to understand what is the user using to access the network. What kind of applications is he trying to run in the network? And what device he's using. Based on all of these three technologies, we can make a decision on how to give him access to the network. And that's how we construct the security policies within the Palo Alto Network solutions. So the source, we understand who the user is. Within the security policy, we can specify that. We understand what is the device that they're using the device ID. We understand and allow them to access only specific applications. And these are granular applications. Like, for example, they can download through Gmail, but they cannot upload using Gmail. And when doing all of this, we still need to inspect all their transactions for security and malicious activities. And that includes wildfire, threat prevention, URL filtering, as well as DNS security. So all of these components make up the security policy to make sure that this user is having enough access to the network to what he needs to do his job. So we're talking about user visibility. So user ID is there, but for certain critical resources within the network, multi-factor authentication comes into play. What about credential theft? What if someone stole this user's credential identity, credentials and identity? How can we differentiate between the stolen credentials and the legitimate user within the network? How can we differentiate between a user who's using a device which is completely clean and someone which has or a device that has been infected by some kind of a malware? All of these are built in within the security solutions that we were trying to offer. The example that we covered covers only the user ID, but we're more than happy to cover the others whenever you need to. So the blueprint does not change. We still need the identity, and we're going into more details within this identity to include the multi-factor, the credential theft, and the dynamic user groups. So after we've secured the access of that user, we need to continue that inspection to cover the transaction. So we need to make sure that these transactions are free of malware, that there's no data theft that is occurring in these transactions that the user is trying to carry out on the network. So how do we do that? Well, it is essential that we scan all content that is being transmitted to the network and sent back from the network for any malicious activity and data theft within these transactions. Now, if we look at the threat landscape as far as transactions are concerned, What do we have? There's multiple components, and things are becoming more and more sophisticated. So starting from the easiest is the known threats. These known threats, we can scan all of these transactions, identify that this is a known threat, and immediately block it. This is very easy to implement. What about evasive malware? So the hackers out there and the bad people out there, they're not sitting idle. They're always renovating and innovating from a malware perspective. So they came up with evasive malware, something a malware that can escape and evade security controls. So how do we treat that? This is a bit more complex than known threats, but still relatively easy to execute. Then we come down to zero-day attacks. So if a hacker came up with a brand new attack that no vendor, no security vendor has seen before. So how can we identify this and block it? Now, all of these are relatively easy to catch and block because they are based on files, and we can do all of them. But as hackers move on more and more and utilize fileless attacks, attacks that happen directly in in memory of the devices that we're using or the destinations, like applications and servers. So how can we detect that? This is much more sophisticated and damaging. What about targeted attacks? The attacks that carry out over a long period of time, something that can escape under the radar. How do we detect this and block it? All of these need to be taken into consideration when designing a zero trust network security. And in all of these areas, Palo Alto Networks will be able to help you out. So with Palo Alto Networks solutions, whether they're cloud delivered or using the firewalls from Palo Alto Networks, the hardware as well as the software, irrespective of what location, whether it's a branch, a headquarters, data center, mobile users, or your public cloud, even your IoT and endpoints, all of these can be secured with Palo Alto Networks by the cloud delivered security services. So threat prevention will be able to understand the known threats and block them. IoT security, clearly identify what is the device that is trying to access the network and what are the vulnerabilities associated with these devices, and accordingly let them into the network or not. What about the zero-day attacks that we talked about? How can we define this using the wildfire file analysis? What about data leakage and data theft? Maybe someone is willingly or unwillingly transferring information that he should not outside the network. DLP comes into play with the enterprise DLP from Palo Alto Networks. Of course, advanced URL filtering for stopping all web based threats is a critical aspect, and DNS security while securing your SaaS applications using SaaS. So, how can you deliver zero trust to within your network? This is not a very straightforward solution. You need to look into the details. As we talked, there's four different pillars: the identity, the device, the access, as well as the transaction. And this can become more and more complex as you have more sophisticated solutions as well as applications distributed across the network. So as more and more your complex, as your network becomes more and more complex, defining a zero trust throughout the network becomes more and more of a difficult task. So Palo Alto Networks has an advisory service. So we can work with you to deliver zero trust end to end. And that includes your users, your applications, and the infrastructure as we talked. And we go about this in 5 different steps. The first step is the advisory and roadmap. So we engage with customers to understand what exists in the network. We provide advisory services and put a roadmap together to achieve zero trust throughout the network. And the second and the third steps, these are the design services. So how can we map and verify all the components of zero trust is distributed across the network? How can we make sure that the identity of users is spread all over the network? How do we put the standards and the design in place to make sure that we can enforce this zero trust that we're designing? In the last part, steps 4 and 5, these are the implementation services. So after we've put a roadmap, we've designed the service, now how can we implement this? So this is split into 2 steps. The first one is the implementation, and then we need to continuously monitor, report, and maintain this zero trust throughout the network. So if you have any queries about zero trust and how we can help you with this, please reach out to Westcon or Palo Alto Networks, and we'll be happy to assist with you in your zero trust journey. Thank you very much for attending this session. I hope this session was useful and you found the information interesting. So this is only a brief about zero trust and how we can help you out with. But please do reach out to us and we can together investigate how we can implement zero trust for users, applications, as well as infrastructure using all the technologies available out there. Thank you again. And it is now time for your quiz time. So we've put forward a few questions, multiple questions. A total of 5 questions are put there. Every question has 4 answers, and only one answer is the correct answer. Please stay tuned, and good luck with your quiz. Thank you.
Awesome. Well done, Maher. That was very well done. Very smooth and within your time limit.
That's great. Excellent.
Great. Thank
Awesome.
you very much, Maher. Sabrina, were you able to make notes of the timings where there was audio fluctuation?
I only got one audio fluctuation.
Okay, which we took the retake, nothing else, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
There was one
great.
at the end when he was saying his thank you, but it was for a very like probably half a second even.
Yes, I noticed that, but it is fine. It could happen in a live event as well, so that's okay.
Okay, awesome. So now on to the 1 minute teaser video.
Yes. So Maher, we'll just take a small, quick teaser video as we had done last time as well. So I'll just put in the chat the text for your reference. Feel free to make the edits. All you have to say is, "Hello everyone, I'm Maher from Palo Alto Networks. Do you want to know more about Palo Alto Networks Zero Trust Enterprise?" Or whatever other stuff you want to say along with that. Then join me at the upcoming Westcon's Imagine Advanced event, where we can together explore more.
Okay. Just give me a second.
Sure, Maher.
Just to make sure that I get everything you want in there.
So
Also, one more thing, Maher, which I noticed was that when Maher was talking towards the end about the quiz, by mistake, he mentioned instead of options, he said 4 answers. So, do you want to keep that bit, or do you want to end it where he says about the quiz that now it's quiz time?
I thought I heard him correctly. Didn't he say there were 4 answers of which one is correct?
Yes, that's what I said. But I think,
Oh, okay.
yeah, Spino was referring that I should have said only for 4 options. One of them is the correct answer.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
think it was mentioned as answers both the times instead of options. So we could either keep the entire thing, or we can just stop where he says now time for the quiz, as you
Okay.
prefer, Maher.
As you wish. If you'd like to re-record that, I'll be more than happy to do that as well.
What do you think, Sabrina? We should be okay with what we have, right?
I thought I heard it correctly, Suina. I thought I
Okay.
heard him say that there were 5 quiz questions with 4 answers, of which one of them was correct. Is
Okay,
that
then
not
that's
correct?
fine. That's fine. That's fine as well. So let's keep the same.
Okay, awesome. And then now for the 1 minute teaser, let's just quickly do a test and see how it looks in full screen. I'm going to remove myself and Suina and Maha quick, just to check that.
Okay, so I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. Just,
You don't need to share screen, Maha. It's going to be recorded in full screen mode.
yeah, so just I'll show you what the text are to make sure that you're okay with it.
Oh, okay. Is that okay, Suina? Okay, still editing it.
Is this okay, Swino?
Yes, Maya, that's fine. You can remove Comstore if you wish. If you feel that you might fumble there with Westcon Comstore, you can remove Comstore there as well. We would be okay.
Yeah. Westcon Imagine event is easier.
Yeah, so you can, yeah, just keep Westcon Imagine. Even if you want to remove the bit Middle East also, then you can do that. And just towards the end, if you can say something like, looking forward to seeing you or see you there or register now, something like that.
So if you register now, you're going to give them a link to register.
Just give me a moment. I'll just quickly check if we do that on our post. Yes, we would be giving them the registration link on the posts as well. So if you want to mention that if they haven't already registered, they should do it now and not miss the chance.
Team, I need to drop now.
Okay.
Thank you, Maher. Thanks again for your support.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Western team. Looking
Thank you,
forward to this
Maha, for
event.
joining. Thank you.
Take
Bye
care.
bye.
Bye.
You too.
So, Maha, I just have one thing to say on with regards to this 1 minute teaser. Because you are going to be in full screen mode, the detail on your face is very clear as well as your eyes. So if you will be reading this script, please could you try and look into the camera, just because it's very obvious when we see the speaker's eyes tracking back and forth between reading and looking in the camera. So
Okay.
we can practice it and take a few takes, one after the other. You don't have to wait for me to come back into the stream. You could just, once you're done with your first take, start right away, or 3 seconds after with your next take. and so on and so on. And then once we see one that is good, then we'll come up into stream and let you know we've got the take that we need.
Okay. So is this good, Swina, the text?
Yes, that's fine, Maher. Absolutely.
Okay, so if I stop the share now.
Okay, good luck, Maher.
Wait,
We're going to be
the
removing
first
Swina.
the
Yes.
first two sentences are pretty straightforward, so I think I can say hello everyone. My name is Maher. Let's keep only this one. Okay. Okay.
Okay, I'm going to remove Swina now. And after my 3-second countdown, just count 5 seconds in your head and then begin. So in 3, 2.
Hello everyone. I am Maher Kotob from Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Store Imagine event, where we discuss how to increase your. No, let's try to do it again. I look too much at the screen. So I'll do this. Yeah, this is better. Um, okay, so we'll go ahead with it now. Hello everyone, my name is Maher Kotob, and I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Imagine event, where we discuss how we can increase your security posture for your network and your enterprise. We will be discussing this by delivering zero trust to the enterprise. Please join me in this session by registering on WestCon's website. Thank you. So did that go all over the place or was it okay?
It was good, but let's just take a couple takes and see what we come with.
So
What
like
do you
this,
think?
you can see my eyes looking at the text or looking at the camera.
Yes, we can see your eyes going back and forth between the text, but it's not the worst, but we can do a little bit better.
Okay.
Also, Maher, just one more request. Instead of saying WestCon website, if you can just say if you can register with the link mentioned in the post, because in the post we'll be putting that link.
Okay. I can do that.
Swina, do you mind popping into the other StreamYard link for our next recording?
Just if you can confirm, the next one is starting at 3:30, if I'm not mistaken.
I have got it for 1 o'clock, my time.
Just let me recheck, double check. Just a moment. Well, I do not see anything, but I can quickly drop and check with Snavel and see if there's anything. But so if you can manage the teaser with Maher, that would be great. Then in that case, Sabrina, thank you very much, Maher, for helping us and supporting us with the recording. Just help me with your updated deck because I see you had removed a couple of slides. So if you can share the updated one with me,
I will.
great. Thank you very much.
I
Thank you,
will.
Sabrina. Thanks, Maher.
No stress, Serena. Thank you. We're ready to go, Maya.
Okay.
Okay. Removing myself in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maher Kotob, and I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Imagine event, where we talk about how we can increase your security posture for your network and enterprise. We will be discussing this by delivering zero trust throughout the enterprise network. Please join me by signing up on the link included in this post. So let's take one more shot at it because I forgot the link. Okay, so here it goes. 3, 2, 1. Hello everyone. My name is Maher Kotob. I am the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Comstore Imagine event. In this event, we will be discussing how we can increase your security
Maya,
posture. Yeah, yeah.
we just lost you there for a second. So let's retake in 3, 2.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Maher Kotob, and I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Imagine event. In this event, we will be discussing how we can increase your security posture within your network and enterprise. We will be discussing how we can deliver zero trust throughout your network. Please register to the event using the link in this post. Thank you.
That was great, Maya. The only issue is the connection is a bit slow. So I don't know if it will show like that in the recording, but your audio is not matching up with your mouth. So
Okay.
it's a bit lagged. Do you perhaps have a mobile data that you could hotspot quick for this recording?
Yeah, sure.
Let's
Just
try
do
that.
Sabrina, is it working now? Or is it worse?
Let's do a test. Just speak for a couple seconds and I'm going to remove myself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. Let's take another take. Hello, everyone. My name is Maher Kotob, and I'm the Channel SE team lead with Palo Alto Networks. Please join me in the upcoming WestCon Imagine event, where we talk about how we can increase your security posture within your network. We will be discussing this by delivering zero trust throughout your enterprise network. Please sign up using the link in this post. Hope to see you then. Bye bye. Was this
There we
better?
go. Yes, we got that. Awesome stuff.
Excellent.
Thank you very much, Maher, and well done on that presentation. It was lovely.
Thank
Very
you.
well spoken. And I hope you have a lovely day further.
Same to you. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
I will enjoy my vacation.